Today is still February 22nd. I'm just going to do a little bit of an extra update here. Talking about these frames. You know, in George's book he talks about how you lay out these frames, how you loft them. And you get a table of offsets which lists the heights above the baseline and then half widths from the center line. So when you put your table out here, make your table for doing this, your half widths, you have line established for that, and that's right here. This is the center line. And so when I'm working on this side of the table, my tape measure butts up against this, and when I'm working on this side of the table, my tape measure hooks over this line, this edge. So you're measuring out either way. Now when you're going vertically, you have to measure from another line, and I made sure this line down here, well, it used to be pretty square, it's getting a little rough on the edges, but it's still square. I made sure of that. Anyway, so I can hook my tape measure over this line and measure up, and you get those points and they create an intersection, and that's where you draw your lines to. The only thing is, they give the format in feet, inches, and eighths of an inch. Like in this case here, 3 feet excuse me, 3 feet 6 3/8 inches plus. That means an extra 1/16 of an inch. But they were talking about different ways of, you have to subtract this rabbet height from these other measurements. And you know, when you're talking feet and inches, obviously it's not, you got 12 inches equals 1 foot, so it gets error prone. Not complicated, but error prone when you're, you know, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, that sort of thing with fractions. It's just a pain in the butt. I would have actually preferred to see the plans in metric, but anyway. So they were talking about all these different ways of adding and subtracting these numbers, and I got to look at this and I thought, well, wouldn't it be a lot easier just to convert everything to inches? So for station 36, you got 3 feet 6 3/8. So 3 times 12 is 36, and 6, so that's 42 and 3/8 plus inches. So you just subtract that from 5 feet 10, which 70 inches, and 6/8 would be 3/4, 0.75. So I just convert everything to whole inches, and I do that on my little notepad here. This first number for frame 38, the rabbet was 46 5/8 inch. Well, you've only got 7 of these to remember of the eighths, and if you work with measuring wood at all, you pretty much got those figured out. An eighth is 1.2, 0.125, and a quarter is 0.25, and 0.375, and so forth. So it makes it much easier then to subtract the numbers to get, you know. So then as I subtract this chine number from the rabbet number, I get this number, this 26.5. Subtract the shear number from the rabbet number, and I get 65 3/4. The raised shear. Subtract that from 46 5/8, and I get 92 3/4. Makes it a lot easier to me. All my tape measures I've got, on one side they're marked feet and inches, and the other side is overall inches, such as 12 feet is 144 inches. So to me, just subtracting inches from inches works a lot. So I converted everything right when I'm doing it to inches, to overall inches, and subtract. To me, that's less chance of error. And I did bring a little calculator out here. Actually, I bought this one to have out here. It was like $4.25, I think. So not a huge investment. Other than that, again, the frames are going okay. I think I got 8 of them built now. I think this is going to be number 9. One thing I did was I built a frame 46, and I don't think I had to. I kind of wondered about that. Frame 46, because if you look at the plans here, here's station 44, then 46 is up here. It's just almost not even on the, you know, it's almost just on the on that keel or transom support. I can't think of what they call it. Anyway, and then I got to, but when I looked at these numbers here, they had everything listed for 46. So I thought, well, okay, if they got it listed for 46, that must mean we need a little one back there. But after I got it built, I came back and started looking at some of these other drawings, and here's 46 here, and it looks to me like 46 just isn't a full frame set. It looks like it just sets over the chine here. So I probably wouldn't have had to have bought that or built that one. So I wasted some plywood and and I don't know about these 2x6s here, if I can cut those out of the, now that it's glued up or not. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. It's not the end of the world, but the plans don't, you know, specify little odds and ends like that. I guess they figure if you're capable of building a boat like this, then you should be smart enough to figure some of these things out on your own. Which hopefully is the case. Not always. But, you know, I know Scott from 6 Points Woodworking, he's building a 41 duck, has said too that, you know, you only do this once generally, so just the time you get things figured out how to do it, you're done with it. And that's so true. If you had built one of these, the second one I'm sure would go a lot faster. But probably not going to build a second one, at least not me. I don't expect my lifespan to be long enough to need a second one. And here's this thing laid out. I've got both sides laid out now. And I suppose in a couple days I'll cut that out. I had to do a little more gluing on it. As usual, I was laying these out. I was trying to make sure I measured everything real carefully off the set of plans, and I made these pieces, you know, I started with a baseline here at 3 feet, and then I was measuring these to make sure I got them all big enough. And 2 places here, you can see that little corner there, and then that little corner right there. I didn't make this piece long enough, so I had to add glue a piece in there. And this is the part that, this is upside down again. This is the part here that's actually going to lay on top of the back of the keel there. And then this part will extend back, and our transom will come up from this part. So, not a big deal that I had to add a couple little wedges in there, but I thought it'd be easier to do it now before I cut it than try to cut it without those pieces in there. I mean, I could have, and I did that on that knee up there. I had the same problem up there, only a lot worse. I missed on a bunch of them. I don't know how, but I missed on a bunch of them. But anyway, I got these glued in here, and I'll wait probably a couple days for that glue to cure up solid. And then I'll cut this out. And I've drawn the marks on both sides, but I'm going to wait until I got one side cut. I'll lay it on its side, and I'll use my big 10 1/4 inch circular saw to cut in here, which doesn't even quite go halfway. But what I like to do then is, after I've made that cut, that first cut, I'll go back and I'll try to bring that kerf line around to the other side of the piece. Get those as close as you possibly can together, and then go through with my jigsaw and a 10-inch blade to clean out that little 1.5 inches or whatever there is in the middle where it's still connected. But when you got angles like this, it makes it a little more difficult to bring lines around the piece. You can see I did that on all these lines, though I brought them across the top and, you know, on the bottoms and whatnot. So hopefully we get a fairly decent cut there. I don't look forward to those. I keep thinking the bandsaw would work great for that, and it probably would, and on some of the cuts, not all of them, of course, but it's just too big and heavy of pieces to run through the bandsaw. I could maybe do like the knees, or could have done like the knees on there, but well, what it is I almost bought a 16-inch circular saw, a real true beam saw. And I probably should have, because then I would have had it gone in 2 cuts. You know, the one cut would have gotten us over halfway, and then the other cut would have met it. But it was a lot more expensive saw, and I didn't really see any use for it in the future. Yeah, what I did here too is I put a couple screws in here to pull it tight up against there, and then clamped it down. Same thing on this one, put a couple screws in there and then put clamps on it to pull it down. Before I start cutting this thing up, of course, I'll pull these screws out once the glue is set. And what little holes that it leaves, you know, back in this back side, they'll quite easily get filled with epoxy when the thing is epoxied onto the top of the keel back there. All right, so that's how we're doing things.